Hey everyone, my name is Matt. I'm the youth and family pastor at Cornerstone Church in Marshfield. I'm here today with your Cornerstone Connection, a daily devotional. So we're going to continue our way through 1 Samuel today, and if you've been reading along with us in the Old Testament, and in particular in 1 Samuel, you know that in recent days, King Saul has been anointed, let me put it that way, Saul has been anointed the first king, earthly king, of Israel. Remember, God's not too pleased. They've rejected him as their king, and they want a human king. They want to be like all the other nations. So they reject God, and they want a human king, and here comes Saul, their very first king, who is a head taller than everybody. He's very impressive. Why wouldn't they want Saul as their king? Well, we're going to find out in 1 Samuel chapter 13 that problems do start to arise. Now, I'm going to read to you a good part of 1 Samuel 13, and as I do, I want you to consider the last time you had a problem, and you tried to figure out, well, what caused that problem? Did you make excuses? Or did you really try to dig past all the different layers to find out what exactly was the source of that problem? Were you honest if you were the problem? Or were you shifting blame and making excuses? Well, let's find out what happens today in our scene in 1 Samuel chapter 13. And join me in verse 1. It says this: Saul lived for 1 year and then became king. And when he had reigned for 2 years over Israel, Saul chose 3,000 men of Israel. 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and the hill country of Bethel. And 1,000 were with Jonathan, that's Saul's son, in Gibeah of Benjamin. The rest of the people he sent home, every man to his tent. Jonathan defeated the garrison of the Philistines that was at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard of it. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." And all Israel heard it. All Israel heard it said that Saul had defeated the garrison of the Philistines, and also that Israel had become a stench to the Philistines. And the people were called out to join Saul at Gilgal. And the Philistines mustered to fight with Israel 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen and troops like the sand on the seashore in multitude. They came up and they encamped in Michmash to the east of Bethaven. And when the men of Israel saw that they were in trouble, for the people were hard pressed, the people hid themselves in caves and in holes and in rocks and in tombs and in cisterns. And some Hebrews crossed the fords of the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul was still at Gilgal, and all the people followed him, trembling. Verse 8, he waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel. Now let me pause for a second. If you were to flip back a few chapters, go to 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 8. Kind of interesting how they're both verse 8. Samuel lays out for Saul. He says, "Then go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I am coming down to you to offer burnt offerings and to sacrifice peace offerings. 7 days you shall wait until I come to you and show you what you shall do." All right, so Samuel gives very clear instruction. Wait for me before you make the offerings. Verse 8 of chapter 13. Saul, he waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattering from him. So Saul said, "Bring the burnt offering here to me and the peace offerings." And he offered the burnt offering. As soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came. And Saul went out to meet him and greet him. Verse 11, Samuel said, "What have you done?" And Saul said, now listen to this, "When I saw that the people were scattering from me," that's one excuse, "and that you did not come within the days appointed," that's a second excuse, "and that the Philistines had mustered at Michmash," that's a third excuse, "I said, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the favor of the Lord. So I forced myself and offered the burnt offering." Now let's see the result. Verse 13, "And Samuel said to Saul, you have done foolishly. You have not kept the command of the Lord your God with which he commanded you. For then the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not continue. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart, and the Lord has commanded him to be prince over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you." And Samuel arose and went up from Gilgal, and the rest of the people went up after Saul to meet the army. They went up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin. So we see what Saul did when he found himself in a bit of a problem, in a pickle perhaps. He thought he did the right thing, but actually what Samuel let him know is you did the wrong thing. Why? Because what Saul did is he acted out of his fear of what was around him. His people were scattering, the Philistines were coming upon him, and so he thought, I need to seek the favor of the Lord. But what he didn't do is he didn't act out of his fear of God. He didn't obey the command that was given to him from Samuel, or through Samuel from God. And therefore there'd be some major consequences. And what makes matters worse is when Samuel confronts Saul, as we just read, he doesn't just say, yeah, you're right, Samuel. My bad. I made a mistake. And so, friends, it's a good reminder and a good warning for all of us. When we find ourselves, I'll be the first to say I sometimes act like Saul. I start pointing everywhere else for the source of the problem that I caused. But friends, let us all be challenged today as we leave from this Cornerstone connection that we need to really dig back the layers and look at ourselves in the mirror and say, was I the cause of that problem? Was I the cause of that disobedience in Saul's case? And be honest and confess and turn back to the Lord and act out of fear of God, not out of fear of man. Friends, have a great day. We'll see you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.